Have you been Googling up a storm and are still lost as to how to build that Squarespace website as a complete beginner? And most importantly, make it look not like you just DIY'd it? If yes, then close down all of the other tabs. I am Paige and I have you covered in this video. In this tutorial, we're going to build a homepage together and I'll show you all of the most important steps along the way. From finding your way around the back end of Squarespace, to styling the site colors and fonts and spacing and buttons, to getting content onto the actual page. The end result of the homepage I'll be building with you today will look like this. And of course, your website will come out looking different, but the hope is that by building a real website together, you'll really understand how Squarespace actually works. So let's get started. To start off with our website, you want to head to squarespace.com and click on the Get Started button. From here, you'll be brought to the templates page. If it asks you a few questions about your business, just hit skip on that and it'll bring you to the actual templates page. I'm going to show you how to properly pick a template, which if you do the sort of automated prompt thing, you might not get the right one. So what you want to focus here on the templates page is about the design style that you prefer. So oftentimes people look at this and they think, okay, well, if I'm a florist, I need to pick the website with the florist demo content in the page, but that's actually not the way you want to pick it. Reason being that all of the other florists in your town are going to do the exact same thing. You're all going to start on the same template or the same 2 or 3 templates, and then all your website's going to look strangely similar, which we don't want for you. So the website which I'm going to build for this example is actually a website for a nutritionist. So I'm going to look through and see which template sort of fits my vibe most. Also going to go to all templates actually, instead of just the popular ones, so I really get to see everything. And then choose. Again, thinking about style of fonts, colors, that sort of thing is more what I want to pick this based off of. Okay, I'm actually liking the Fayette template, so I'm going to go with that one for now. I'm just going to close out this pop-up and then start from the beginning. Okay, so what's happening here on the page? You can see in the main portion of the page, we see an example of my website design. Now, if I click on the edit button in the top left, that gives me the ability to actually edit the content on the page. Once I have finished my edits, I would hit the save button, but for right now, as I haven't done anything yet, I'm just gonna hit exit. Then continuing along the top navigation bar, we have the option to see our website in desktop view or also in mobile view. And we will go through and tweak both the desktop and the mobile view as we're building out the website. The next option over is a site styles option. This is something that you tend to work on at the beginning of your website. And once you've set this, you honestly don't really touch this after you have set it up in, say, by the end of this video. So here is where we can change things like our fonts, colors, spacing, buttons, those sorts of things. And we're gonna come back to this later on in the video. And then you'll notice along the left-hand side, we have our main navigation options for the back-end editor of the website. So website, selling, marketing, contacts, analytics, and scheduling. Now, the key thing here to know is that Squarespace frequently updates what these navigation options are. And so to make sure that this tutorial makes sense to you, no matter if Squarespace has changed these options and your navigation options are looking different right now, here is the hack of what to do. If you hit the forward space key on your keyboard, it automatically brings up a search bar, and it basically allows you the ability to search for any of the different navigation options. And even if there are a few submenus in or they've changed the location of them from what I'm showing in this video, you're going to be able to find whatever the navigation option is by first hitting the / button on your keyboard and then typing in whatever the name of the navigation option that you need is. Next up, let's set our site style. So the first thing we want to do is click on the paintbrush icon in the top right-hand corner called Site Styles. From there, it opens up our options. I'm going to start with, at the top, the fonts option. So when I click on that, it gives me a little bit of information. It's telling me these are the 2 current fonts chosen for basically this template came with these font styles already set up. Now I get to change those if I want to. So the easiest way to change your fonts in Squarespace is to select another font pack. A font pack is basically where Squarespace has chosen 2 fonts, which they think look really complementary together. And you can just choose from 2, again, complementary fonts if you're not very confident picking 2 independently yourself. So you'll notice as you scroll through here, there's a variety of different options. If you clicked on one, it would change the fonts on the left-hand side in the demo view window. And let's see, which one did I start with? This was the one I started with. I actually quite like the fonts that are here, so I'm gonna leave them personally. And again, the more that you choose your template based off the style of the template, the less time you need to spend fiddling in the site styles, basically. So you can choose your font pack from here. If, however, you're not happy with that and you wanna get more specific, you could do that. And there are a lot of options. So let's say I didn't love the heading font. So that's the bigger font on the page. I could click into the heading font that's currently there and into family. And then I can click on browse all fonts. Now get ready, this can be a little overwhelming. There are quite literally thousands, tens of thousands, I don't even know, maybe 100,000 different fonts that are in here. So you could spend a really long time scrolling through this list if you want to. If you are curious, by the way, I do actually find that a lot of people use Squarespace for their website and Canva for their graphic design. And if you want to know what fonts are both in Canva and in Squarespace so that your branding can be consistent from your website to, I don't know, this is social media posts you post on Instagram, for example, I do actually have a freebie. It's all the fonts that are in both Canva and Squarespace. I'll link it down below for you. You can grab that if that is helpful for you. But anyways, so again, use that download to figure out all the fonts in the different places and make sure you can also search by name here for them so you don't have to scroll through the ginormous long list. So basically, click on them, see which ones you like, and then we can move on from, well, actually, no, let's talk a few more things about fonts. Next thing is weight of the font. So this is basically how heavy this font is. Again, as I change the weight, you'll notice it's updating automatically in the left-hand side. The other thing you can do is change the style of the font. So if that font is always, say for example, italicized, or if it's just normal, I pretty much always leave this on normal, and I would suggest you would too, for the reason that when you're actually typing in the text block, you can change any section of it to be italicized. So if you set it as italic here, it's italic everywhere, whereas if you set it as normal, you kind of have the option to do both in the text block. The next thing is line height, basically just the amount of space above and below your lines. What it's set to normally is almost always quite good. I wouldn't play with that too much, to be honest. Text transform, again, similar. You could have it all uppercase, all lowercase, capitalized, the first letter of every word. I leave it as none because again, I can just change that as I'm typing the text into the box. And then we have the different sizes of the fonts. Now for headings, we have 4 different heading types, which basically they're all roughly the same. They're the same like font and everything, but we can change how big they are. And so you could play around with these. Again, what it tends to have tends to be good. If you want to change it later, you find in a certain area, oh, I need something much bigger or much smaller, you can always come back to this section and tweak it later. Do note that the changes that you make here in site styles apply to the entire website. So if you have heading 2 on your homepage and on your about page, for example, and you set it to be, let's say 4.2 in the size, then it's going to be 4.2 on your homepage and on your about page and on your contact page and all the different pages. So just know that again, any changes made here apply site-wide. The next navigation option down is colors, so let's talk about that. So every template comes with a preset bunch of a color palette, let's say, and this is what the template was originally styled with. Now we can change those if we want to change those. I am mostly happy with this color palette, but there's 2 colors which I'm not loving. I'm not loving the orange and I'm not loving the sort of like gray blue color happening there. So I'm gonna click into Edit Palette. From here, along the top, I can select the different colors and you'll see that it changes on this sort of like color wheel here, exactly which color is selected. I actually really like the sort of like dark, deep red, kind of looks like wine color. I'm into that. I'm not loving the orange, however. I do have a green color, which I have chosen previously. I was actually in Canva and I was creating myself a little like color board. If you work with a brand designer, they will often give you a color board, basically. I just whipped up something quickly for this video. I really like this dark green color. So I'm going to select in Canva to get the actual color code. Now this is called a hex color code. It is a string of 6 different numbers and letters together, and that identifies a very specific tone and shade of a certain color. So the good thing about this, these hex color codes, they are sort of like international, I guess you would say. They work in Canva, they work in Adobe programs, they work in Squarespace. So I'm just going to copy that color code, come into here, change from RGB two hex color codes and then paste in the hex color code, which I got from Canva. Now, my green color is the exact same as the green which I had originally selected inside of Canva. So again, if you're using Canva for graphics and Squarespace for your website, make sure that you're pulling the hex color codes so that you can make sure that the greens are the exact same and consistent between website and social graphics, for example. The other color which I'm not loving is this gray color. I would actually like something a bit more like beigey neutral. So what I'm going to do, another alternative way that you can select a color is to use basically like the color wheel happening here. So I'm going to go down here in the direction of like yellows and oranges and then drag this around here to get a beige, which I like. It's kind of like that looks like a good beige to me. So I'm actually quite happy with that color palette. And again, this is just me selecting the color palette myself. Now, another way to select your colors is using the Squarespace presets of colors. Basically, this is like easy version. You can just choose some colors which Squarespace has already put together. They complement each other and you can select those for your website. So I could go through here and click through the different color palettes and you'll notice that the vibe of the website slightly changes when I select the different color palettes. Now, the one which I had before, I actually like the best. So I'm going to exit and not save those changes. So I get back to my original color palette. So I have a white, a black, a dark red, a dark green, and a beige. And those to me look fabulous. But again, those color presets are an option for you if that's easier for you. Now, once you select your color, Squarespace does something very handy for you, and they basically put together color themes for you. So when we get into the actual page building, this will make a lot more sense, but basically just know that they have sort of set up a bunch of different website styles based off of, do you want this section of the page or this page to be a darker page or a brighter page or a lighter page? And it's sort of, again, set the styles according to which color options you have up here. Again, once we get into the actual page build, that will make a lot more sense to you. Now we're gonna go back to site styles. We're gonna skip over animations and spacing for now, and I will talk about some of those things later. Let's next go into the buttons area. So we have 3 buttons on our website, the primary, secondary, and tertiary buttons. And for each one, you can choose the shape, the text that's in the button, is it an outline or not? Let's go through. So I can select on the text. Now, the 2 text options, which are here, are the 2 main fonts, which I had selected previously. I would suggest to mostly stick to those 2 fonts. You can, again, go to the Browse All Fonts option and see, again, all of the hundreds of thousands of font options that there are. But in order for your website to look cohesive and consistent, it's actually mostly best to just stick to, again, either your heading text or your paragraph text for your button style as well. Again, you can change up a bunch of the styles here of that as well. Now, in terms of the button shape, we can choose which one we prefer. I'm gonna go for that one. I feel like that's kind of fun. And if you want an outline around the button, as I scroll here, it creates an outline around it. I'm actually quite happy with all those things, so that's great. And again, remember that you can change up the different buttons. So you do have 3 different versions of them, but I'm gonna leave them as is for now. Next up, we'll head into the website tab and we can get started with actually building out some pages. So here's my pages menu. You will notice right now there is nothing in my top navigation, so I don't have any pages listed across the top of my website here. And I want to change that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the plus button and select a blank page. I'll call this one an about page. I also want to add a page for my services. So I'm going to write in services. And then I also want a contact page, so let's add that on. And finally, I want a blog page. So instead of selecting a blank page for a blog, you actually need to select the blog type collection in order to get a blog on your website. And that's again where you're writing a variety of different like articles and different sort of like blog posts. They all go within the blog page as opposed to being individual, let's say blank pages. With the blog page, it gives me a few layout options. I'm going to select on this one for now. Now, if you want to change the order that your navigation options are appearing, all you need to do is click and drag them. So I actually want my about page to be first, the services page to be second, whoops, blog page third, and contact page last. So again, you just click and drag here on the left-hand side, and that's what rearranges them over here in the preview of the website. One other option that I want to bring your attention to in terms of the website pages is actually the drop-down option. So if you click again on the plus button and you scroll down, you will notice the drop-down option. This is basically like a folder of a bunch of pages that could exist. So maybe you have it as your services, and then you have, let's say we'll add a few different blank pages within our folder. The folder doesn't actually do anything. It's just sort of acts as the drop-down area. And then the pages within the folder are actual pages, if that makes sense. So I'm going to click on a blank page, and let's say I have a course. I'm going to add a course page, and then I have a one-to-one coaching. Add that one, and I'll add one more page to my folder. Call this group coaching. And you'll notice as I do that and I hover over this services section, you can see the three options appear in the drop-down menu. Now, I just want to show you that for an example, but I don't actually want that on the website, so I'm going to delete that out. Now you'll notice there's also something called a not linked section. A not linked section basically means it's a page which exists on the website, but it's not linked from the top navigation. It is very typical to have your homepage actually in the not linked section, because people mostly know by now that if they want to get back to your homepage and they're on some other page, to click on your site logo, and that brings them back to the homepage. So I'm going to click onto my homepage, and this is where we're actually going to build out some content on the website. So I have pre-prepared my content for this website. So I'm going to upload a bunch of photos into my asset library. And I also have the text already written. I actually used my own homepage content planner to write the text for this website. It is a free download. I will link it below for you. If you are struggling with what exactly you should be writing on your homepage, then that is going to be very helpful for you. But anyways, so let's start with the images. I'm going to head out of the Pages tab, back to Home, and I'm going to click down here in the Asset Library. And from here, I'm going to click Upload in the top right-hand corner. And I already have a folder full of website photos. I'm going to select all of these and open them up, and they're all going to upload into the back of my website. Now, key things to know when you're uploading photos. One, what you want to do is rename these pictures before you upload them. You basically want to give them names which work for SEO, that is search engine optimization. In terms of naming your photos, think if I could not see what was on this website and I was using a page reader on this website, so that's for people who are blind, for example, the name of the photo should describe what is in the photo. So if someone could see the photo, they could kind of get an idea of what exactly is in it. Now, I have not done that for the example of this tutorial, and as you can see clearly, these are all stock photos from the fabulous Elevate stock photos. I'm in love with their pictures. This video is not sponsored by them, but as you can tell, their photography is incredible, and so I will link below where you could grab these. I might even have an affiliate link for that, so I will put that below if that is the case. And if you want to go get some really incredible photos for your website, definitely highly recommend them. Okay, so now all the photos are uploaded into my asset library. That basically just means that I can quickly select these as I'm building the page instead of uploading every time I want to add a photo to the page. So going back out of the asset library back to the website tab, and I'm on my home page, so that's great. Next, I'm gonna go into the actual editor of the page. So I'm gonna click on Edit, and here we have the editor of this section here. In the top left corner, we have the add block option. This basically, think of your website is made up, the content of the page is made up by a bunch of blocks. You'll notice typical blocks are text block, button block, video block, image block, form block, newsletter block, basically different bits and pieces. It's kind of like Lego that you add to the page in order to create the content of the page. I'm going to click out of that for just now. You'll also notice that I automatically already have some blocks added here. So there is a text block here, and there's also a form block happening here as well. And then if I go into the edit section on the right-hand side, we will see a few more options. If I go into background, I can tell because there is an image in the back here that there is already an image uploaded into the background section. Now, I'm actually going to delete that out because I don't want to use the demo Squarespace photos in my website because that would make it look very, typical. So I'm going to delete that out, and you'll notice now I just have like a colored background. Now, if I head under the colors tab, you will see these are the color themes that Squarespace has pre-populated. So if I select on the different options, you'll notice that the colors of the page changes based off which of these different color themes I'm selecting. Now, the key thing to know is that all of these colors come from the color palette, which you've already set earlier. I'm gonna select light 1 for now and head out of this menu. Okay, next up, I wanna change the actual content on the page because again, this website is going to be for a nutritionist, not a tropical cocktail party, so we need to change up the text. So I'm gonna open up, again, this is the homepage content planner, which I mentioned, you can download it, it's linked below. And basically I've used this to guide me in the writing of the content for the page. So let's see, I have my tagline area here, and I'm going to write that same content into my actual Squarespace site. So I'm gonna head over into my text block, select the text which is already there, delete it out, and then start typing in. Okay, for this text block, I feel like this text here is a little bit on the large side. So what I'm gonna do is change up the heading type. So you'll notice when I highlight this text here, up in the top left corner, we have the text toolbar. This looks very similar to a text toolbar that you'll find in things like Google Docs or Word documents. We have different options for bolding and italicizing. This is why, by the way, I mentioned don't italicize your text inside of the site styles because you can italicize any text you want in the text block here. We can also change the color of the text if we want it to be one of the colors from our color palette. We can select that there, or we can choose to make it a custom color. I honestly, again, wouldn't use the custom colors because things get very messy very quickly if you go off of your color palette. We can also easily add a section and a background color to behind our text if we want to by selecting this icon right here. And then again, you can make that one of your color palette options if you want to. However, I'm going to remove that. Now again, in terms of the size, I feel like this is a bit on the large size. So I'm gonna select, I can see here that this text is heading 1. If I select a different piece of text, let's say this text, you'll notice that changes to paragraph 2. So as you select text, it'll tell you which heading or paragraph option it is. I feel like that's a little bit too large, so I'm going to select maybe heading 2. That looks a bit better. Now, the other thing which I don't love about this text is that it's going wall to wall on the page, and I just don't think that looks that great. So what I'm gonna do here is click on the text box. You'll notice that a blue box comes up around it with sort of little access points here. I'm going to select those and pull this in a bit closer until the text falls in the way I want it to, and then I'll click the whole text block and drag it over. You'll notice when the yellow line appears, that means that the block is in the very center of the page. Now, as you can see, my button here is now overlapping my text, which is not great. So I'm gonna click on the button and pull it down. So it's very easy to move something around the page. Basically just click and drag. Now I don't actually want this form here, so I'm going to select it and then click the little trash can icon to get rid of it. But what I do want on this section are some images. So I'm gonna click on Add Block in the top left-hand corner and select the image block. When I click the plus button, you have a few options. You can upload the file, but seeing that I already upload a bunch of assets to my asset library, I'm gonna go to Select from Library. And again, these are all photos which I had previously uploaded just a moment ago. The other option which you have is you can get some free images. This is Unsplash images, or you can select premium, and these are stock photos from Getty. To change the size of the image, I'm again just gonna click on the little blue and white dots on the corner, and I'm actually would love this photo to go right to the side of the page. So I'm gonna select like so and change this up so it's right to the very edge. Next up, I want another image. I'm gonna add block, image again, click on the plus button, select from library, and this one also has a great vibe to it. Let's add that one to the page. I'm going to change up the size again by clicking and dragging on the outside corners. And I want this one to actually go a little bit behind the other one. So I'm going to drop it here, and then You'll notice I have some rearrange options. So I want to move this photo backwards so that it goes behind the other image. And now you can see it's still overlapping the actual text here. So I'm going to click move backward again. Now we can see here, this actually doesn't work. So it is behind now both the text block and this other image block. However, it's cutting off the W and a little bit of the D because those colors are so similar. So I have a few options. I could either change the text color by selecting the text, selecting color, and then changing it. That would be one option. I actually like it in black, however, so I think my solution is just going to be to move this image so it doesn't overlap. I'm gonna add another block, select another image, select from library. Now I don't want all the photos, right now they're all vertical, which I don't love the look of, so I'm actually going to change up this one here. So let's select, edit, design. I'm going to have it fill the space, the container basically, in which it's in. Now, when I change the width of the container, the image automatically fills the entire thing. Maybe let's have this one be a square so it's a bit different than our vertical cropped photos on the left-hand side. Now again, it is in front of the text, which I don't love, so I'm gonna move this behind. And in this case, it actually works for it to be slightly overlapping because the contrast is still enough that you can still see and understand both the words while having the image slightly behind. If anything, looks kind of good that way. Now, before moving on to the next section, I do find that there is quite a bit of blank space happening below here. So what I'm actually gonna do is select this option in the bottom right-hand corner. This basically controls how much space and how many more sort of rows there are where you can add content. And I'm going to pull it up to the very top so that I get rid of some of the extra space there. Now let's move on to the next section. Coming back to my homepage content planner, I'm going to copy the next section of text and then head back into my website. And to be honest, kind of just want to get rid of the demo content. So I'm going to remove the remaining sections from the template, clicking the remove in the top right-hand corner on each section to get rid of it. And then I'm going to add a new section by clicking the blue add section button. I'm gonna add a blank section. I personally find that designing from a blank section is a lot easier and it allows my content to guide the website as opposed to trying to stuff my content into the template. You can, however, select different sections here. There are examples of this might be a good looking section for an about page or for a contact page. However, again, I'm just gonna use the add blank section option. From here, I'm going to add a block and add a text block and paste in my content. Going to change up, actually, you know what? I like the ratio of that text block. So we're gonna leave that as is. I'm gonna add another image, grab a photo, which could be the owner of said nutritionist. I'm not loving the red background, so what I'm gonna do is go into edit section in the top right-hand corner, select colors, and then choose a different color theme for this background. Now I am noticing that these items aren't quite centered in the section. There's more space above the image and text than there is below it. So I'm going to select both blocks by clicking and dragging so that I select them both. And then I'm going to click and drag them upwards so that they're more in the middle of the section. And again, changing this here on the bottom right-hand side, the little pulley, to get rid of that last row there. Heading back to my page content planner, let's look at my calls to action area. I have a few different service types, which I've typed in here. I'm gonna copy these over. I'll add a new section to the page and again, select a blank section. Again, I'm not loving the red background, so I'm gonna click edit section, colors, and I'll select a beige background this time. I'm going to add a block, some text, paste in my text. And for this, I actually want it to be a heading. So I'm going to select all my text and then click up here to paragraph 2. That tells me what font style it's currently set to. I, however, want it to be one of the headings. Do I want heading 3 or heading 4? Yeah, I think I want heading 3. Again, if you want to change the size of this heading, you would head back into site styles. If as you're designing, you realize that the sizes that you had selected before don't work, again, you could click up into the paintbrush icon, go back into the fonts area and change up the sizing, and you'll see it change dynamically on the page here. Going to add an image block, select from my library. Going to click on my text block and bring it forward so that it's over top of my image, and then select on the edge so the hand icon pops up, and then move, there we are, move my text block. Want it a little bit overlapping. Let's pull this back and this like so. Maybe let's try with a background color on this text block. Gonna click on the edit button and then onto the background color button. I like it with white in the background, so let's leave it like so. And then we need a bit of a description, so I'm going to add another text block, drag it over to the right-hand side here, and then paste in the copy which I had written for here from my page content planner. I'll click and drag to move that block, and then I want to add a call to action button. So I'm gonna go back to blocks, click the button block, click and drag that to where I want it to be. Here looks good. And I wanna click into the editor of my actual button, the little pencil icon, so that I attach a link to it to go somewhere. So I have a few options. I can choose for it to go to a URL, so that's a website outside of my own website. So I could paste in, for example, www.facebook.com, for example. Alternatively, I can search for pages which already exist in my website. So I'd already previously created a services page. So I'm just gonna type in services, and you'll notice that it pulls up under my main navigation. There's the services page. I'm gonna select that page. It will now, when they click on this link, take them over to my services page. So I'm just gonna click off to save that, and that section's finished. Now I want to add my other two services to the same page. So I'm gonna click here in the bottom right-hand corner on the little blue pulley to add more rows to this page, or to this section, sorry. And then I'm gonna do the same thing again with my next section. With this text block, I actually want it to overlap here, and I want the text to be aligned to the right-hand side as opposed to the left-hand side of the container. So what I'm gonna do is click on this button right here, and I'm gonna change the alignment to be aligned to the right, which is great. And again, I'm gonna add in a background color so that there's a lot of contrast. Whoops. Here, I'm gonna add in a background color so there's contrast between the text and the image behind it. You can see I'm trying to make the odd bit of white space here go away. However, when I pull up, you can tell that it won't allow me to do it, meaning that inside of this text block, as you can see, there's another line here. So I'm just gonna delete out that line, and that will get rid of the strange space below. I'll click and drag so that it's more centered with the image. And again, I'm going to right align the text. Make it match the one above. Let's add another button. Pop it here. Good. And then we'll do our third section with our third service offering. Okay, so my page content itself is looking quite good. There's just a few more tweaks which I want to make. I'm going to edit my site footer. Going to hit edit section, and I want to change the background color of this one. I'm going to turn it to the green background color. I think that looks quite nice. I also need to change the details down here. So I'm just going to add in some text on side, delete out this and maybe just add a call to action button. Also, fun hack for you, if you hit Shift, Return, you get a smaller line break. So if I just hit regular, like Enter or Return, and then start writing out, you'll notice there's quite a bit of space between Home and About, which I don't love. So I'm gonna delete, and then hit Shift, and then Enter or Return, and then type out my About, and you can see the line break is a lot shorter. So Shift, Services. I can then select this text, click on the link button, and type in, I want this to go to my home page. That's linked. Want to link my About page, so highlight the text, click on the link button, type in the page which I want. Go to the next one, highlight services, click on the link button, type in the name of the page, select the page from the list. And finally, the same with blog page, select, good. And I'll save that. Okay, so this page is looking quite good, but I need to next update the Your Site title to be the name of the business. So let's click on the down arrow, click on the edit button, click on edit site header, and then when I click here, I'll get a little pencil icon and that will open up the editor. So let's say, what's my business called? If you do have a logo which you've already previously designed, you can alternatively click on the Add Logo button and just upload your logo file there. Do make sure that it has a transparent background, otherwise it won't look very good on the beige background color here. If, however, your logo does have a white background color, we can get around that by clicking on Edit Design of the header section, going to Color, and changing this to be a solid color and selecting a white background for the background there. Now, that's again, if you have a image or logo file which has a white background, you would want to do that. So again, it doesn't look jarring. However, I did actually like before how it was just using the color. When you click on adaptive, it uses the background color of the next section of the page for also the background of the header. So I like that. And because I'm just using a text-based logo, that works perfectly fine. Now, the next thing I want to do is make sure that this website looks good on the mobile design as well as the desktop. So we always build it on the desktop, but then we need to check mobile. So we're going to click on Mobile View and scroll through and see how things look. Now, you will notice that things sometimes drop the way you want them to on mobile view, other times they don't at all. So it looks like we have some editing to do here. So I'm going to click the edit button in the top left-hand corner. And we're just going to basically rearrange items. All of these blocks are the blocks that were on our desktop view, but again, sometimes they look strange when they drop on mobile, so let's do some rearranging. I would love for this image to go right up directly to the left-hand side of the page, so I'm gonna go into the editor of the image, click on Design, and then onto Fill, and now it will reach the left-hand side of the page. Then I also had this image in behind the image of the girl on the desktop. So I'm just gonna click and drag to pull it up and click and drag to pull the text down. And I need to rearrange these. So I'm gonna use the Move Backward button, and I want the size to be a little bit different. So let's do this maybe. And we'll pull this up a bit. That looks good. And this image also needs to come up. And then I can see this section here is a little bit too long, so I'm going to click and drag. This is the same option that you have on desktop to change the number of rows below the content. So I'm going to change that there. And that looks a lot more like the desktop version. This one is also fine, but I actually think I want this image to be a bit wider. So I'm going to click and drag to make the section longer, pull down the text a little bit, and then make this image larger by pulling down like so. That's better. Actually don't love that this is the entire width, so I'm gonna make it a bit thinner and pull it into the center. Good. Moving on to the next section. Let's do some tweaking. I'm again gonna get this to click on edit, design, and fill the entire space. I will pull this down. Sometimes things get a little bit messy here as this is about to be. We're gonna click on move this back. That looks better, but now this little piece is too big. Let's make this smaller and maybe pull that right over top like so. That looks good actually. That's good. For this button, I feel like it would actually make more sense to the right. Okay, that looks good. Let's fix this next section. This wholesome way course, I'm gonna pull this over and bring it to the front. I'm going to make the image, actually I'll make it the same proportion, so it's a square image here. So let's make this a little bit more square-like and have again the image fill the entire container. And then let's have this pull over here. Oh, I actually really like that this one's going way to the edge. So let's try that with this one here too. So they look consistent in their design. Those both look really good. I'm gonna pull up the text, pull up the button. That's great. And then let's do the same for the last one. That looks good. Let's pull up this bit of text and the call to action button too. You know what? I want it to go consistent, sort of like right, left, right. So we're going to change this text to be right aligned by selecting the text and then going into my toolbar, selecting right alignment, and we'll just pull this button over to the right, and then that fits. And now you'll notice we have a bunch of extra space, so I'll just get rid of that by dragging this up here. And that looks a lot better on the mobile view. So you'll notice things sometimes get a little strange in mobile, so you definitely want to come in here and check it and tweak. Now I do also have another video all about the Squarespace e-commerce shop feature, so if you want an online store on your website, definitely click up above or in the description below to head over to that tutorial for Squarespace e-commerce. While we won't go over e-commerce in this tutorial, we will talk about blogging, so let's head into the blog page next. So Squarespace already has some demo blog posts in here and the layout sort of set up. I'm not loving the red color in the background, so let's click on edit, edit section, colors, and change to one of our different color themes. Maybe let's go, you know, this could be interesting as black actually. Let's try that. Let's hit save. Let's add a new blog post. We're gonna click the plus button to add our new blog post. And it will open up the page editor. So I can type in my title, and then to write the content of the post, we're just gonna click here into the text block and start typing. Now you can add a lot more than just text to a blog post. If you click on the little insert points as I hover my mouse over the page, you'll notice they appear down the middle there. I'm gonna click on an insert point, and again, I get my different content blocks popping up here. These are the same that we were using before. If you want to add an image to your post or maybe a button to the post, maybe a call to action button to your services page would be a really good idea. Maybe I'll add in this here a gallery. Now a gallery is different than an image block in that it is multiple photos as opposed to just an image block is just one photo. Now I'm gonna click in the bottom right hand corner, search images, and again, this is my asset library of images here. Let's go ahead and pick some photos to add to this blog post. Now, those are all looking good, but as you can see, I have one space missing. So let me, you know what, I'll delete out some photos, or alternatively, I could add one more image to fill that corner. But let's try to delete out the images which don't seem to fit. Instead, click on the garbage can by the image which I want to get rid of. And then I want my images, so the food images are mixed in with the other ones. So in order to rearrange these, I'm just gonna click and drag to change the order of the images. So I can get more of the food images into the middle here. Okay, Perfect. I'm going to click off to get out of the gallery editor, and we can see I have all my images uploaded. I have some blog post content, so that all looks fabulous. Then in terms of my options of what to do next, I can either just save this blog post, and this is going to save it as a draft. So especially if you have someone coming in to look over your blog post, you might just want to save it as a draft. If you want to publish it right away, you can click on the publish button. Alternatively, if you want this blog post, say you're publishing it on a publishing schedule, you want a blog post to go live every Monday, for example, you could hit schedule, select your next Monday, and you can actually select the exact time that it will go live. So say I always make mine go at like 6 a.m. Just click off, click on schedule, and now this, we can see it says edit schedule, so we can see, and up here it says scheduled. So we know that this blog post is going to go live at the time which I have selected in the schedule here. So I'm going to click on that and exit. And we can see that that blog post is scheduled to go live at that time. Now, in terms of the thumbnail image, if I go back to the main blog page, out of this blog post into the main blog page, you'll see that it's not appearing right now because these other ones are published, but this one isn't. So let's go ahead and publish this post just to show it. Oops. Let's go into the post itself, edit, and we're going to publish it so we can see it in my long list of content. And you'll notice that there's no thumbnail image for this blog post set, so we need to fix that in order for it to also have an image like these ones do here. So I'm going to click on the three dots and then on the settings tab. And then in featured image, that's our thumbnail image. So I'm going to add an image, click on save. And there we are. I now have a thumbnail image to go along with my blog post. Of course, I don't want these demo ones, so I'm going to select them here and delete like so. And there we have on my blog page, my first published blog post. Now heading back to the website tab and then the home tab, I want to point you in the direction of a few other features that Squarespace has. So the first one, again, is the selling option. This is basically e-commerce. So if you want to sell digital products, physical products, courses, if you want to have people schedule in for appointments with you and then be able to book in for a call, which maybe are a coaching call, which they pay you for, that's an option as well. So again, I have another video on that. I'll link that above and below for you. We're not going to go into the selling options right now, but do know that they're there for you. The next tab is the marketing options. So Squarespace has both email campaigns. So if you want to use Squarespace for your email marketing, that is an option. Alternatively, they have other marketing tools. So we could have a pop-up on our page. We could have an announce bar at the top of the page, or we could also create special links for any ad campaigns that we're doing. I'll just show you quickly the promotional pop-up and the announcement bar, as I feel like that's what most of you will be using. So a pop-up, I think a lot of you are familiar with. It's basically something which appears on your page like so, which is very present, very noticeable. They have to X out of it to get rid of it and it basically tells them to do some specific thing. Most often this is used to give out maybe a discount code for your online shop, or to collect email addresses, or to point them to whatever major thing is happening in your company right now. I'm first going to toggle on my promotional pop-up. I'm then going to select change layout and pick a different look of my pop-up. Maybe let's go for this one. Save to go back into the editor. Action, yes, I want them to sign up for my newsletter. Perfect. The other option is to click a button. So that would mean maybe, for example, you say sale, shop the sale. That is one option where they just click a button to go do something. And again, you would just type in the link of wherever you want it to go to. Alternatively, you can go to sign up for a newsletter, which is a really good thing to use your pop-up for. You can change up the text happening on the button, for example. Maybe you're offering some sort of free download. So you can change the text from subscribe to download now, for example. If you want to write anything about your privacy, maybe read our privacy policy. In terms of storage, there are a few different options. If you are using Squarespace email campaigns, that's their email marketing basically, you can click to connect that. Alternatively, there are some other options. You could connect to MailChimp, or you could connect to Google Drive as well as another option. In terms of the post submit message, this is what it changes over to once they have actually typed in their email address and click download now. So maybe, for example, you want to say, now go check your email, save. I need to add my storage option. Good. And save. Heading back, we have a bit more work to do on the actual content of the pop-up to make it really look good. Join our mailing list is a terrible call to action. So let's say 100 free, wholesome, healthy recipes. Just delete out that. That's enough. Save. Back into my promotional pop-up. Display and timing. This is selecting where exactly this pop-up appears. So do you want it to be once they scroll halfway down the page? You can select that option. If you want it to appear after 30 seconds of them being on your website, you can choose when the timing of it appears. You can also choose how often it appears for them. So do you want, if they come to your website every day of the week, do you want it to appear every day of the week, or do you only want it to appear once every week for that same person? I'm going to save to head out of this option. Next, we want our image, very important. Let's search in our library of images, find something which looks like a really great recipe. Perfect, that looks wonderful. Let's go back to promotional pop-up. Good. In terms of the styles, I'm actually happy with everything, but I would have the option here to, again, change up what different fonts and everything and weight and if it's italicized or not italicized here. But otherwise, I think that all looks great, but do know that you can scroll through here and just play with the different options to make your pop-up appear a little bit differently. And then in order for it to actually work, you just want to click on this little display pop-up toggle, set it over to green, and click on save. Back in the marketing tab, the last thing I wanted to show you was the announcement bar. So let's enable our announcement bar. This is basically a little announcement bar at the very top of the page. Let's say, for example, save 25% now. And we would link that to whatever page that course is being sold on. So I would click on the gear icon, go to the Pages tab, and search for the appropriate page, which would have the information on that course. Click on save and head back again to our website. Now back on our main screen, if you go under the Contacts tab, just to give you context as to what this is, if you use Squarespace email campaigns, then your different subscribers or if you use the e-commerce feature, your different customers will be here in your contacts area. If you go under analytics, this is not very interesting when you first launch your website because there's no data in here, but it will basically tell you things like how much traffic your website's getting, are people visiting your website from mobile or from desktop, where are they coming from, what are they searching in your website or in Google in order to get to your website, what buttons are they clicking on most on the website, what products are being sold the most on your e-commerce store. So again, not interesting right now, but will be down the line. So do definitely come in here and check things out over time. And again, you can change your information so you can see just the last 30 days of analytics or the last year of analytics, etc. And then the final tab is the scheduling tab. This is where you can set up an appointment scheduler. This is really fantastic if you want to, say, offer one-on-one coaching calls, for example, paid or unpaid. You can also do and use this for things like if you had an entire yoga studio, you could book your entire yoga studio or spa. You could use this for booking different appointments with different therapists or yoga instructors. It gets very fancy. You could have group discounts or they could buy packages of different maybe yoga classes, for example. So there are a lot of options inside of Acuity Scheduling. I will go ahead and show you some basic setup of it right now. So the first thing is to create appointment types. So let's go through and say we do a one-on-one 60-minute coaching call. 60 minutes. Let's say that this costs $500. And I'm going to create my appointment type. And you'll notice this is a personal one-on-one type session, not a group class, like say a yoga class. The next thing I need to do is set when I'm available to host these calls. So it automatically is putting in Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I can change that if I want to. Say I only work till 1 p.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I take Fridays off. I can just deselect Friday and have those be my settings. Now, do know that you can actually customize this. So you can set your standard options here, but if there's a certain day and time, like next Wednesday, you're actually taking the entire day off because you have a dentist appointment or something, then you can edit that elsewhere as well. Next up is to design our scheduling page. So let's click on that. And we can choose how this looks. Good, good, good. Happy with all those things. We can see the preview of the scheduler here. I think that looks quite nice. So I'm going to leave that as is. Now, if people are paying you for the, say, one-on-one nutrition coaching calls, then you do also need to set up your payment processor in order to start accepting people's credit card details, basically. So if you click on here, you'll notice that there's 3 different payment processor options. We have Stripe, Square, and PayPal. You'll need to go to those different companies and set up your own account with them. And then once you have an account with them, you can click on the connect button to connect whichever payment processor you prefer. I would say my personal recommendation, I use Stripe, and I would say it is my favorite of the 3. The other option which you have is to change your currency. It will automatically default to whatever your local currency is. I'm in Switzerland right now, so it is setting it to Swiss francs, but you can charge in different currencies if you prefer to. Now, I did mention if you're taking off one specific day coming up, you can actually block that out so people don't have the option to book that day. So if you head into your calendar here, you'll see that all the areas where you had listed before as available, they appear in white, whereas the other ones appear in gray. If you want to have some sort of period of time off, however, maybe you actually want to take this entire afternoon off, you could just block off the time like so. And you can do that for any week out in the future as well. Okay, so next up, let's talk about launching your actual website. Let's head into the settings tab. We're going to select site availability. Right now it is set to private, so only I can see this basically. However, what we can do is click upgrade to publish. So this is where we need to choose a Squarespace plan in order to actually make our website live. You can have your website on a trial and that is for free, but when you want this thing to be live to the world, then you want to pick the appropriate plan. So what I will tell you just right off the bat is that you can use my code PAGE10, PAIGE10 at checkout for 10% off whichever plan you choose. If you are running a business, I would say, and it says right there, most popular option is the business plan. You can scroll through here and see if there's any features in maybe one of the upgraded plans or the lower plan that you would or wouldn't want and select appropriately. But I would say the vast majority of new websites built on Squarespace, the business plan does fit the most for you. Now, because this is just a demo, I'm not actually going to upgrade and pay for this website, but just basically follow the instructions, click on the appropriate plan, pop in your credit card details, and Squarespace will walk you through the rest of the steps to actually launch your website to the world. Now, knowing the tech of how to build a website is one thing, but making it look good is quite another. If you want to sell higher priced products and services, having your websites look match that more expensive price point is going to be key. So watch this video next and I'll share the 6 design rules of expensive looking websites.